I sent my seller a pricing recommendation, they ignored it, and it cost them. I had another seller that trusted the data, they priced it right, they got 9 offers, and walked away $40,000 over asking price. Same market, completely different outcomes. Here's exactly what happened. What's up, guys? Happy US Open Week to all my fellow golfers out there. Now, if you're thinking about selling your home in Milwaukee or Waukesha County, I want you to watch this entire video before you do anything else, because the mistake I'm about to walk you through is the most expensive one I see sellers make. And the frustrating part is it's completely avoidable. It has nothing to do with your home's condition, nothing to do with the market being slow. It comes down to one decision you make before you ever list, and that decision is pricing. One of my favorite J. Cole songs is called "Pride is the Devil." And I think about that line more than you'd expect in this job, because pride is exactly what gets sellers into trouble when it comes to pricing their home. Today I'm going to show you exactly what happens when you get it wrong and exactly what happens when you get it right. Real situations, real outcomes, and I'm going to share something I've never really talked about on this channel before. So let's get into it. Here's the hard truth that nobody really wants to hear. The market doesn't care. It doesn't care what you paid for your home. It doesn't care what you owe on your mortgage. It doesn't care what your neighbor told you their house sold for 3 years ago. And it definitely doesn't care what number you need to make your next move work. The market only cares about one thing: what a ready, willing, and qualified buyer is willing to pay for your home right now, based on current conditions, based on comparable sales, based on what else is available in your price range. That's it. And when sellers price their home based on anything other than that, that's where the problem starts. Here's what I see all the time. A seller sits down, they've done a little research on Zillow, and they come in with a number already in their head. And that number is usually anchored to one of 3 things: what they paid for the home, what they need to net to afford their next place, or what their friend, their neighbor, or their brother-in-law told them it was worth. None of those things are data. None of those things reflect what a buyer in Milwaukee or Waukesha County is willing to pay today, and there are a lot of smart buyers out there. And when you list based on those anchors instead of actual market data, buyers notice immediately, because they've been doing their homework. They know what similar homes are selling for, and when your price is out of line, they don't call to negotiate. They just keep scrolling. Now, before I get into 2 seller stories, I want to share something I've never really talked about on this channel. Early in my career, one of my first listings, I made a version of this mistake myself. I recommended a price that was too high. I didn't have the experience that I have now, and I let the situation influence my recommendation when I should have let the data lead. My seller didn't end up netting what they should have, and that one has stayed with me. And I've never approached pricing the same way since. Listen, I'm not sharing that to be self-deprecating. I'm sharing it because this mistake doesn't just happen to sellers. It can happen when an agent isn't being straight with you either, and you deserve someone who's going to tell you the truth even when it's uncomfortable. That's what the rest of this video is about. So let me tell you about the first seller. I put together a detailed pricing recommendation. I pulled the comps. I looked at what had sold, what was active, what had expired. I gave them a clear range based on the data, and I explained exactly why. But they wanted to list higher, and that was their call to make. So we listed at the number that they wanted. The first weekend, we actually got a lot of showings, which felt promising. But then the feedback started coming in, and it was consistent. Across the board, buyers and their agents were saying the same thing: priced too high. When you hear that feedback once, you note it. When you hear it from nearly every single showing, that's the market talking. And the market was telling us exactly what the data already had. See, the problem with overpricing isn't just that it slows things down, it's what happens to your leverage while you wait. Buyers see days on market, they see a home sitting, and they start to wonder, what's wrong with it? Why hasn't it sold? By the time an offer came in, the leverage had shifted. We were no longer in a position of strength, and the seller ended up accepting less than what the data said they could have gotten if we just priced it right from day one. The number they were chasing at the start, they didn't get it. They got less. And the time they spent on market made it worse, not better. Overpricing doesn't protect you. It actually costs you. And I say that not to be harsh, but because it's the truth, and you deserve to hear that before you make that decision. Now let me tell you about the other seller. Same market, completely different mindset. This one sat down and said, John, what does the data say? That was it. No number already decided, no working backwards from what they needed, just what does the market tell us? So we pulled the comps, we looked at the competition, we talked about buyer psychology and what pricing strategically below key thresholds does to traffic and offer volume. And then we landed on a number designed to do one thing: create demand. Not dramatically below market, but strategically below. Enough to signal value. Enough to make buyers feel like if they didn't move, someone else would. That home got serious activity immediately. 9 offers. 9. And when you have 9 buyers competing for the same home, you're no longer negotiating because they are. The price goes up, not down. They walked away $40,000 over asking price. $40,000 on a home that could have been overpriced, sat on the market, and sold for less. That's the difference between a pricing strategy and a pricing preference. One is built on data and market psychology. The other is built on what feels comfortable. The sellers who trust the process, those are the ones who win. So what does smart pricing strategy actually look like? Here's what I walk through every seller I work with. First, close sales. Not Zillow, not what your neighbor thinks. Actual closed sales in your area, in your price range, in the last 60 to 90 days. That's your baseline. Second, active competition. What else is on the market right now that a buyer might also be considering? Because your home isn't competing against its own past value, it's competing with every other home a buyer walks through this weekend. Third, condition and presentation. And I want to be direct here. Even the right price won't save a home that isn't showing well. Staging matters more than most sellers realize. I work with Kayla Hunter at Hunter's Interior for staging. She's outstanding. She knows what buyers in this market respond to, and she knows how to make a home show beautifully in person and photograph even better online. If you're serious about maximizing your sale price, presentation is not optional. Fourth, timing. The first 7 to 10 days on market are everything. That is your window. That's when buyer interest is highest, when you have the most leverage, and when multiple offer situations happen. Price it right, show it well, and that window is where you win. Miss that window, and you spend the rest of the listing playing defense. Before I wrap up, here are the questions every seller should ask before they ever sign a listing agreement. What have similar homes in my area actually sold for in the last 90 days? Not listed for, sold for. How long did those homes sit on the market before going under contract? What is your pricing strategy and why? And here's the one most people never ask. What's the plan if we don't have strong activity in the first 2 weeks? A good agent will have clear, specific answers to all of those. If they're vague, or if they just throw a high number at you to win the listing, that's a red flag. The agents who promise you the highest price to get your business are not always the ones who deliver the best outcome. In my experience, they often don't. Look, selling your home is one of the biggest financial moves you'll make. And as you just saw, the difference between getting the pricing right and getting it wrong isn't a few $100s. It can be $40,000. The sellers who come out ahead go in with real strategy. They trust the data, and they work with someone who's going to tell them the truth, even when it's not what they want to hear. If you're thinking about selling in Milwaukee or Waukesha County and you want to have that conversation, I'd love to connect. My link is in the description. No pressure, no pitch, just an honest conversation about what your home is worth and what a smart strategy looks like for your situation. And if you're not ready yet, but you know someone who is, share this video with them. It might be the most valuable 10 minutes of their time before making that decision. As always, thank you for watching. And remember, whatever move you make next, make sure it's a smart one. See you next week.